The first thing people noticed when the hikers came out of the Christmas trail was the silence. Not exhaustion, not shock, not even relief. Just silence. 4 of them had gone in before dawn, laughing, pushing snow off each other's jackets, their breath fogging in the cold mountain air. A Christmas tradition, they said. A harmless hike through a place locals warned them about only in low voices. By evening, only 3 returned. And they didn't look like they had spent the day hiking. Their clothes were clean. Too clean. No snow stuck to their boots. No mud. No scratches from the maze of pine branches. They walked in a straight synchronized line, their steps landing in the same slow rhythm, crunching the frost in unison. Someone approached them, a volunteer ranger. "You folks all right?" he asked gently. The tallest hiker turned his head just a little too slowly. His eyes didn't blink. "We came back," he said. His voice was flat, empty, like he was repeating a phrase he'd heard for the first time. The ranger frowned. "Where's the 4th?" The other 2 hikers answered together. "He stayed." The ranger's skin crawled. "Stayed where?" All 3 lifted their heads toward the tree line. The branches behind them shifted, though no wind blew. Something moved within the tree line. Something that sounded almost like footsteps trying to match theirs. The tallest hiker leaned close to the ranger, breath cold and wrong. "He'll come back," he whispered. "Just not as himself." Before the ranger could react, the 3 hikers smiled, wide, unnatural, mirrored expressions carved across their faces. And from deep in the forest, a 4th voice whispered back. They took the hikers to the ranger station, a small wooden cabin with dim yellow lights that flickered whenever the wind pushed too hard against the windows. Though wind wasn't the right word for what was happening outside. The trees shook, the snow drifted sideways, and the distant forest made a low, groaning noise. But the air outside felt still. Dead. Almost held. Ranger Ellis noticed it first, the way their footsteps echoed wrong on the planks as they entered the cabin. There should have been variation, the soft shuffle of tired boots, the uneven rhythm of people who'd spent 12 hours climbing. But their footsteps landed in a perfect steady beat. Tap, tap, tap. 3 sets. 1 beat. Ellis pretended not to hear it. Pretended not to see the clean clothes or the way none of them shivered despite the biting cold outside. He gestured toward the bench. "Sit tight. I just need your names, and you can call someone to pick you up." They didn't answer right away. They sat. Slowly. Synchronously. Like puppets guided by the same string. The shortest one, Mia, according to the reservation log, watched Ellis with a calm, unwavering stare. Her pupils didn't adjust to the light. They stayed wide, glossy black. She tilted her head. "Why are the lights buzzing?" Ellis blinked. "What do you mean?" "They're not." The ceiling light flickered violently, buzzing like a trapped hornet. Ellis stepped back. How had she known it would happen before it did? The second hiker, Marcus, leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His breath came out in one long stream, too long for a human lung. "We want to go home now," he said quietly. Not angry. Not demanding. Just observing the sentence as he said it. "We'll get you home," Ellis replied, forcing steadiness into his voice. "But I still need to know where the 4th member of your group is." All 3 faces turned toward him with the same slow motion. "He stayed," Mia repeated. Her voice didn't match her expression. Her mouth smiled, small, polite, but her voice stayed flat and empty. Ellis felt the hair on his arms rise. He stepped to the radio, clicked the button. "Dispatch, this is Ranger Ellis. Static. No transmission. Just a hiss so soft it sounded like breathing." Ellis tapped the radio again. "Dispatch? Come in." A voice whispered through the static. "Behind." He froze. Marcus lifted his head. Mia leaned forward. The 3rd hiker, Jonah, began tapping his fingers on the bench, creating the exact same rhythm as the footsteps earlier. Tap, tap, tap. Ellis didn't turn around. Didn't want to. The hairs on the back of his neck stretched so tight it hurt. Mia smiled wider. "Something followed us." His throat tightened. What do you mean? Jonah stopped tapping. Marcus answered. He wasn't supposed to see it, but he did. He stepped off the trail at the wrong time. Ellis swallowed. Who? The one who stayed. They all whispered at the same time. Something scraped against the cabin wall. Not claws. Not branches. Something searching. Ellis backed away from the hikers. Tell me exactly what happened on that trail. Mia glanced at the others, like checking for permission. When the sun rose, she said softly, we walked past the old marker, the one with the red ribbon wrapped around it. Ellis frowned. That ribbon was taken down in October. Marcus answered. No, not that one. Jonah finished. The other marker. The one they never speak of. The cabin felt suddenly smaller. Ellis forced himself to breathe. There's no other marker on Christmas trails. The map shows. There was, Mia interrupted. Her voice deepened slightly. Today. Ellis stared at her. Marcus continued. It wasn't on the trail. It was beside it. Jonah. A step off the path. Mia. Just one step. They spoke in perfect sequence, no overlap, like reading different lines from the same invisible script. And your missing friend stepped toward it? Ellis asked. Mia's smile vanished. He didn't step toward it, she whispered. He was pulled. The lights buzzed again, louder this time, and the temperature dropped so sharply Ellis could see his breath. Marcus' eyes shifted toward the door. He's close. Jonah leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He keeps trying to speak, but it doesn't sound like him anymore. Ellis reached slowly for the emergency phone on the wall. As his fingers touched the receiver, Mia's voice rose behind him. Not in volume but in certainty. You shouldn't call anyone. Why not? Ellis asked without turning around. Marcus answered. Because if more people come, Jonah continued, it will follow them too. Mia finished. It likes groups. A shadow passed the window. Tall. Too tall. Its shape bending wrong, like a person folding in on themselves and still standing upright. Ellis backed toward the desk. I'm getting you three out of here. We're waiting for daylight. No, Mia said. We don't wait for daylight. Why? All three hikers leaned forward, faces now inches from his. Because it doesn't. Another scrape along the cabin wall. This time on all four sides. Something circling. Listening. Ellis' heartbeat hammered. What came out of that forest with you? They didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Their mouths opened at the exact same moment. And three voices, in perfect harmony, whispered. Something that wants to finish the count. Ellis found himself unable to move. Unable to speak. The hikers all turned to the window again. A fourth silhouette stood outside. Its head tilted. Its arms too long. And when it spoke, its voice matched the missing hikers. But only at the start. That was how the introduction ended. With its voice changing mid-sentence. Sliding into something that wasn't human anymore. Right as it whispered Ellis' name. Ellis didn't remember how he ended up outside the cabin, crouched behind a snowbank, radio dead in his pocket, flashlight trembling in his hand. The three hikers. They were gone. Or at least, he thought they were. A distant crunch of synchronized steps made him freeze. Tap, tap, tap. Exactly like before. He looked toward the tree line. The forest seemed thicker than it should have been. Shadows stacked like piles of coal, forming shapes that moved against the weak moonlight. Then a whisper. Ellis. Not from the tree line. From inside his mind. His own voice echoing back at him, faint, distorted. He shook his head. The whisper disappeared, but the unease lingered, a prickle crawling up his spine. Ellis forced himself to recall what the hikers had said about the other marker. He pulled the small trail map from his jacket pocket, shaking with cold and fear. The usual markers were circled in neat red, but there was a small, almost imperceptible scratch near the edge of the trail, a line not on any official map, just a trace that seemed carved into the snow and earth itself. He remembered something else from their words. The missing hiker had been pulled. Not lost. Pulled. The thought gnawed at him. Pulled by what? The first night after their return, Ellis stayed in the ranger station alone, waiting for backup. That's when the forest began to whisper. At first, it was subtle, the rustle of leaves, snow crunching in slow, uneven beats. Then came the voices. Not human exactly, but shaped like them. A child calling for a parent, an old man warning to stay back, the faint echo of laughter. Always distant, always just out of reach, but close enough to make him spin around. He tried to record it, radio it, call dispatch. Nothing worked. Every device malfunctioned simultaneously, the equipment seemingly obeying some invisible rule. His watch froze at 7:43 p.m. His flashlight dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. Each flicker left a shadow longer than before, bending the corners of the cabin into impossible angles. Ellis began to notice small changes in the environment. He would step into the snow outside and find footprints in perfect synchronization. 3 sets, leading away and back, even when no one was visible. Trees that had stood straight in the morning seemed to lean, tilting toward him as if observing his every move. The wind would shift, but the sound would always come from the wrong direction. At one point, he saw the 3 hikers at the edge of the forest, standing perfectly still. He called out to them. They didn't answer. And then one of them, Jonah, turned his head slowly. Head cocked unnaturally, eyes black as midnight, lips moving silently, forming words Ellis could not hear. A flash of panic hit him. When he blinked, they were gone. The Christmas trail had been infamous long before this group of hikers arrived. Ellis had heard whispers from old rangers and locals, stories they always brushed off as drunken tales. Decades ago, there had been a hiker group that vanished during a Christmas hike. Only one returned, and he claimed his friends had stayed with the forest. By the time authorities found him, he was babbling about red ribbons, markers that weren't there, and a presence that imitated them. His eyes had been black like glass. He was committed to a psychiatric hospital. Even older legends described the trail as cursed. Families in the area spoke of an entity that fed on curiosity and tradition alike, waiting for outsiders to come during the winter solstice when daylight was shortest. It didn't strike immediately. It followed. It studied. It imitated. And when it chose to act, it drew people away from their paths and changed them. Ellis remembered reading one old journal in the Ranger archive. They walk as if they were me. Their steps are mine. Their words echo mine. But they are not me. And I am not them. There is no end. It was unsigned. Dated over 50 years ago. Ellis tried to convince himself the hikers were somewhere safe, maybe lost, maybe hiding for warmth. But every logical explanation failed. Every time he approached the forest, he felt a tug in his chest, a nausea, a magnetic pull toward the red ribbons, the invisible marker. Night after night, the ranger cabin filled with signs that made no sense. Objects moved slightly, a coffee cup shifted an inch to the left, a notebook slid open to pages he hadn't written. He would swear he heard quiet breathing behind him, but when he spun around, no one was there. He began to question his own mind. Maybe he'd imagined the synchronized steps, the whispers. Maybe the 3 hikers were real, maybe not. Maybe the 4th never existed. But then, in the morning, the snow outside the cabin told a different story. 3 sets of perfect footprints leading from the tree lane to the cabin, and another, different, distorted, dragging slightly, as though it were something inhuman. Ellis started keeping a journal, trying to track the patterns. Every time he wrote down a detail, the page would smear, letters twisting like they were alive, forming words he didn't remember writing. It's learning you. Soon you will follow. Alone. Desperate, Ellis visited locals. He spoke to the old caretaker, Mrs. Whitmore, who had lived near the trail her whole life. She refused to look him in the eye. They come back, she said finally. Her voice quivered. But not them. Not the same. Watch the snow next Christmas. You'll see the tracks. You'll hear the whispers. You'll feel them. Feel what? Ellis pressed. They don't stay in one place. They wait. And they pick one who notices first. Another neighbor, a hunter, told him that the forest had sections that didn't follow maps. "We call them foldings," he said, voice low. "A trail curves back on itself. Time stretches, people step out of reality. You follow the wrong step and it follows you. Forever." Ellis walked away shaken. These weren't just stories. Patterns were emerging. A line of dread coiling in the pit of his stomach. The missing hiker, the synchronized steps, the whispers, all pointing towards something inevitable. By the third day, Ellis saw subtle signs the hikers were nearby, though he never caught a full glimpse. Fresh footprints in perfect rhythm appeared outside the cabin at dawn. One morning, he woke to a small snow sculpture at the edge of the clearing. 3 human figures, carved crudely, staring at him. Their faces were wrong, blank, and yet familiar. He found small items missing from the ranger station. A pen, a thermos, a pair of gloves. No one else had been there. He began hearing snippets of their voices. Fractured sentences drifting through the trees. "He shouldn't be here. We have to wait. Ellis." Always soft, always impossible to locate. Ellis realized with dawning horror that the forest wasn't just near the hikers. It was inside them. The things that followed the missing hiker had begun to imprint themselves on the 3 survivors. Something was learning, adapting, copying, and waiting. One night, a branch struck the cabin wall. Then another. Then a series of taps. Tap, tap, tap. Exactly 3 steps, then a pause, then one more step trailing. Ellis turned. Flashlight trembling. Outside, the 4th figure stood in the snow. Head tilted unnaturally, arms too long. Its face a shifting blur, sometimes human, sometimes the missing hikers. Ellis froze. It didn't move closer, but he could feel it, a pressure as if the air itself weighed him down. Then it spoke, voice a combination of all 4 hikers, layered in tone. "You shouldn't be here." The sentence was wrong. Ellis felt it. Wrong in rhythm, wrong in meaning, wrong in existence. He stumbled back, tripping over the snow. When he looked again, the 3 hikers were back at the cabin, staring out the windows with synchronized heads. They didn't speak. But the figure outside moved closer, gliding instead of walking, melting into the shadowed forest and stopping just beyond the tree line. Ellis realized it was studying him, learning his fears, waiting for him to make a mistake, waiting for him to follow. Ellis knew the moment had come the second he stepped outside the cabin. The forest wasn't silent. Not in the way it had been before. It hummed. Low, rhythmic like the pulse of something vast and patient. The snow crunched beneath his boots, and every footfall echoed like 3 people walking beside him. Tap, tap, tap. He froze. 3 sets of footsteps. No one visible. He whipped the flashlight toward the tree lane. Shadows flickered, impossibly long, bending against the weak moonlight. His chest tightened. He remembered Mrs. Whitmore's warning. They pick one who notices first. Ellis had noticed. A voice called his name. Not softly, not in the distance, but close, layered, impossible. Ellis. He spun. Nothing. Just the trees swaying. He took a shaky breath and stepped forward, flashlight stabbing the snow in front of him. "Show yourself," he shouted, trying to force courage into his voice. A branch cracked. Then another. Then, tap, tap, tap. The footsteps circled him, keeping pace with his own. He felt it before he saw it, a presence heavier than the air, pressing down. Then the 3 hikers appeared at the edge of the clearing, silent, aligned perfectly in a straight line. They didn't move like humans. They moved like extensions of the same entity. Their eyes reflected moonlight like glass, black and endless. Mia leaned forward, head tilted impossibly, lips moving without sound. Marcus and Jonah mirrored her, a cruel echo. Ellis swallowed hard. Where's the 4th? She smiled. Not a human smile. A synchronized, mechanical smile. "He waits," Mia said. The words were perfectly in time with Marcus and Jonah. He waits for the count to finish. Ellis' stomach turned. He realized with growing horror that the forest didn't just follow. It collected. And now it wanted him. From the tree lane, a figure emerged. The 4th hiker. And yet, it was not him. Its limbs were wrong. Too long. Its movements glided instead of walked, bending the snow beneath it like it didn't belong in this reality. Its face shifted between human and something else, grotesquely fluid. The moment it spoke, Ellis could recognize the voice. But only at first. Then it warped, twisted, layered with the three others. "You should not have come," it whispered, a chorus of voices overlapping in horrifying synchronization. Ellis stumbled back. His mind screamed for escape, for reason, for light. None of it mattered. The entity advanced, steps unbroken, unrelenting. Ellis ran. The snow seemed thicker now, clutching at his boots. Trees shifted as he passed, bending toward him, closing the path behind him. Each step forward was heavier than the last. Ellis. The whispers followed him. Not the entity itself. Its voice wasn't enough. It was inside him. Thoughts he didn't want. Memories he never had. Doubts about who he was. Every misstep, every hesitation, every wrong instinct seemed magnified, echoed, replayed. He stumbled into a clearing. The old marker, the one carved into the snow, faintly red. The same marker the hikers had spoken of. The entity hovered near it, now fully materialized. Shadows stretched and coiled around it like living smoke. Its voice rose, layered and multiple. "You notice. You remember. You count. You follow." Ellis' vision blurred. He tried to scream, but his voice didn't leave his throat. He felt a pull, magnetic, irresistible. His boots moved toward the marker before his mind did. The three hikers appeared beside the entity, shadows of themselves. They moved silently, perfectly synchronized. They didn't speak, they acted. Every gesture mirrored the entity. Ellis realized, with dawning terror, that they weren't alive anymore. Not really. They were extensions. Part of the forest. Part of it. Ellis' mind fractured. "Stop! Leave me alone!" he shouted, voice cracking. Mia leaned closer. "There is no stop." Marcus' eyes reflected the moon. "There is only follow." Jonah whispered from behind him. "Only count." The fourth figure tilted its head. Words stretched across time, layered impossibly. "You came. You counted. Now you belong." Ellis dropped to his knees. He shook his head violently. "No. I'm not. I'm not." "You are already inside," the entity said. The forest seemed to echo it, the snowflakes suspended in midair, the trees groaning. "Your mind is the trail. Your thoughts, the path." He tried to run, tried to climb the ridge, but the snow became mud. The trees bent, blocking his path. Shadows reached for him. He screamed. And then the hikers spoke together, one sentence in perfect harmony. "You can't leave until the count is finished." Ellis remembered the journal in the ranger archive, the words unsigned for 50 years. "They walk as if they were me. Their steps are mine. Their words echo mine. But they are not me. And I am not them. There is no end." It wasn't just legend. He realized the entity followed a rule, a ritual. It didn't kill immediately. It tested, it mirrored, it waited until the victim became complicit, counted the steps, learned the rhythm. Then, only then, it absorbed them. He was complicit. Every fear, every glance toward the forest, every hesitation fed it. The three hikers circled him, closing the gap. He could see his own reflection in their black eyes. They were him in ways he could not explain. His mind cracked as he realized the forest wasn't taking them. They had already changed. He screamed again, and it felt like the sound echoed inside the entity's body, feeding it. Ellis tried to fight, swinging a branch. The air resisted. It was thicker, viscous, dragging at him. The entity's shadow coiled, bending around him. It moved faster than he could see. The fourth figure leaned down. Its face blurred, folding in on itself, then regaining shape. "You belong now," it said. Ellis fell backward. The three hikers crouched in perfect sequence around him, moving as extensions of the entity. Their mouths opened, not to speak but to project a thought. "You are the trail." The world warped. Time slowed. 1 second stretched into a minute, stretched into an eternity. He heard everything. Footsteps from decades past, whispers of old hikers, laughter and panic echoing through the snow. He saw every trail, every path, every marker that had ever been carved, and realized none of it led anywhere except deeper in. He tried to run, tried to scream, tried to fight. The forest, the entity, the hikers, all were one, moving with inevitability, guiding him, bending him into the rhythm he had always noticed. Tap, tap, tap. He stumbled into the old marker. The snow was red there, but not from ribbon. From what, he didn't know. The ground seemed alive, pulsing beneath him. He tried to pull back, but invisible hands, cold and strong, pressed him toward the center. The fourth figure reached out. Its touch was not physical but mental, invasive, rewriting his memory. He saw himself walking the trail earlier, alone, unaware. He was already counted, already changed. Ellis screamed, but it wasn't his own voice. It was layered with theirs. The three hikers mirrored him, twisting, bending, their laughter blending into the wind. He understood then, resistance was meaningless. The entity didn't need to kill. It just needed observation, attention, recognition. Once you saw it, once you counted it, once you remembered it, it had you. Ellis' vision fractured. The trees leaned, the snow flowed uphill, the moon blinked in and out. He was everywhere, nowhere. His thoughts were theirs, theirs were his. The trail stretched infinitely, looping, red ribbons appearing and disappearing. The three hikers reached out, hands skeletal, elongated, merging with shadows. Mia whispered, "You are part of us now." Marcus and Jonah echoed, "The count is complete." The fourth figure bent down, closer than possible, until its face was next to his. Its lips didn't move, but he heard, "You will walk. You will remember. You will follow. Forever." And then the world went silent. Ellis blinked. He was back at the trailhead. Snow blanketed the ground, fresh and untouched. No footprints, no signs of struggle. Only one thing remained. The trail disappeared beyond the edge of the forest, folded back on itself like it had never been there. No cabin. No hikers. Just snow and trees, silent. A single red ribbon fluttered in the wind. Tap, tap, tap. Ellis realized the count hadn't ended. It had only begun. Ellis woke to a cold morning alone, lying in the snow just past the trailhead. His boots were wet, his clothes damp from frost, but otherwise intact. The forest was silent. Too silent. He shook, trying to orient himself. The cabin, the tree lean, the voices. Everything from the past night's terror seemed gone. Gone except in memory. His hands trembled. He checked his pockets. The radio, the flashlight, his journal. All were there, untouched. The pages he had written on glared back at him, ink smeared but readable. "It's learning you. Soon you will follow. Alone." Ellis froze. The words seemed to pulse on the page. He dropped the journal. Snow drifted over it immediately, erasing letters like they'd never existed. He trudged back toward the ranger station. The roads were empty. Not a car, not a footprint. Nothing human moved through the frostbitten landscape. Dispatch eventually returned his call, puzzled. "Ellis. Who are you talking about? Which hikers?" They came back," he said, voice cracking. "But they weren't themselves. The fourth." The line went dead. Again. No one believed him. No one could. By the time anyone reached the trail, all signs of the cabin were gone. Just snow, trees, and silence. The forest had folded itself back, leaving only the illusion that it had ever been there. Ellis returned home. Tried to sleep. Tried to tell himself it was a hallucination, a fever from too many nights alone in the cold. But the nightmares followed him. In his dreams, he walked the trail again. The red ribbons appeared, twisted into impossible shapes, leading him forward. Footsteps echoed behind him. Tap, tap, tap. Perfectly in sync. He turned, expecting the three hikers. But they weren't there. Only a shadow stretching from the trees, folding and unfolding, always just behind him. He woke sweating, shaking. His phone rang once. No number. No voice. Just a whisper. Count complete. Days passed. Months. Ellis tried to return to normal life. Tried to laugh, talk to friends, eat meals, sleep in his bed. But the forest never left. Snowflakes on his window moved against the wind. Shadows in his apartment lingered longer than light should allow. Footsteps echoed when he was alone. Always three, always following. At night, a faint scent of pine, cold and wet, would fill the room. People noticed subtle changes in him. His voice grew monotone, his eyes a little too still. Sometimes he would pause mid-sentence, listening. Not to a sound, but to something unseen. He began to count things compulsively. Steps, doors, windows, numbers became talismans. He couldn't stop. Something inside him insisted on it. The trail had marked him. The trail had changed him. He couldn't remember clearly what had happened to the hikers. Sometimes he would swear he saw Mia's smile reflected in a stranger's face on the street, black eyes catching his own. Marcus' laughter echoed in elevators. Jonah's quiet whisper slipped into his ear during phone calls. He tried to tell himself it was paranoia, a coping mechanism. But every time he closed his eyes, the forest stretched out before him, impossible in scale, twisting in on itself. Red ribbons floated like ghosts between the trees. A path appeared where none should exist. And sometimes, he thought he saw the fourth hiker, just for a moment. Face shifting between human and something else, standing at the edge of his vision just out of reach. Ellis realized he had become part of the trail. Not physically, at least not yet, but mentally, spiritually. Every thought, every fear, every memory tied him to the entity that lived in the forest. He had counted. He had noticed. He had survived. Temporarily. But survival was a cruel illusion. The trail would always come for him again. One step off path, one moment of curiosity, 1 second of doubt, and the forest would reclaim him. He understood with final clarity what the entity wanted. Not death, not violence, not destruction. It wanted participation. It wanted witnesses. It wanted to shape humans into shadows of themselves, to fold them into the trail, and to feed on the act of counting, of noticing, of fearing. Ellis didn't scream. He didn't run. He just sat in his empty apartment, staring at the corner where shadows pooled unnaturally, and waited. Weeks later, a hiker's journal appeared at the ranger station, dusted with snow, covered in frozen pine needles. The name inside was illegible, the handwriting shaky, blackened. The entry read, "We went out for a Christmas hike. It was fun at first. The trail was beautiful. Then, something followed. We didn't know how long we were gone. We thought it was only hours, but it was days. We returned. But not as we were. One of us stayed. We don't know if he will ever return. We tried to warn the next hikers. But the forest listens. It always knows. The count begins again. No signature. No date. Just a final sentence, scrawled across the page in a shaky, uneven rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. We are waiting for you. The journal vanished from the ranger station desk the next morning. No one saw who took it. Only the faint imprint of footsteps, perfectly synchronized, leading into the trees, left behind in the snow. Ellis knew it. He felt it in every bone of his body. The forest was patient, eternal. And the count was never complete. On Christmas night, 2 months later, a new group of hikers stood at the trailhead, laughing and shoving snow at each other. One paused to tie his boot. Another looked at the tree line, where the wind bent the trees unnaturally. A shadow moved. 3 black shapes, silent, eyes reflecting the faint moonlight. They stood at the edge of the tree lane, watching, waiting, and somewhere in the distance, though no one could hear it, a voice whispered, soft and chilling, "The count continues." The forest swallowed it all. The snow, the laughter, the footsteps, and the trail once more bent impossibly inward, hiding what it had claimed, waiting for the next to notice. The terror had not ended. It never ends. And somewhere, deep in his apartment, Ellis counted. 1, 2, 3. Tap, tap, tap.